Two, one. Whenever you are, wherever you are, thank you for joining the Design of Everyday People live stream, where I talk to senior designers from all over the world and where you get to literally ask them anything. So get your typing fingers ready, and I'll try to weave in your questions within the conversation. But let's start making this session as interactive as possible for the folks tuning in. Let me know where you are tuning in from in the chat to know that we're not just speaking into the void. And before we get started, I want to talk to you about something that's going on this November. So it's my belief that education should not be a luxury, but the reality is it costs $15,000 for a boot camp, $30,000 for a university degree, or a bunch of these online courses that are really, really pricey. And after all that money spent, most designers still end up self-taught anyway. I know this because I was there. Education in our industry is somewhat broken, needlessly expensive, lacking real-world application, and not built on how designers actually work. And that's actually the origin story and why I created UX Playbook. From designing your first portfolio to leading your first design team and everything in between, you can find resources that immediately help you solve design career challenges you're facing without that theoretical BS. And it really focuses on you actually doing the work with guides, templates, and examples. And here's where the punchline is. Once a year, I offer a discount on UX Playbook. I want to show that here. And I call it the year's best deal because that's exactly what it is. Last year was 40% discount on Black Friday, but this year I'm going a bit nuts and I'm saying, screw this. So for the whole November, I'm giving the folks that are watching this and that could access the website 50% discount for the entire November. That's right, the whole month. So if you're interested in, getting this discount, you can scan that QR code on screen or head to uxplaybook.org and enter code FRIYAY25 to get 50% off. If you miss this, you'll have to wait until next year. But let's get back to the show and let me play that funky intro music. This is the design of everyday people.
It sound right, boy.
All right. And I've just left that QR code here just for the folks who want to access it while listening to this conversation. So welcome to How Designers Build Influence. We always start with quick introductions, so I'll go first. I'm Chris, the founder of UX Playbook, but before that, a self-taught designer struggling to get into UX. And now I spend most of my time helping designers navigate a fuzzy career, from building your first portfolio to leading your first design team. If you are interested to check out Zip Playbooks, again, that QR code is here. You can go scan that or go to uxplaybook.org. But that's enough about all the messaging and intro stuff. Today, I'm joined by Dan Weiner, a product design leader, a creator, and working remotely before it was cool. So let's get him out and find out more about Dan. How's it going, man?
Hey, Chris. Thanks for the intro. Going well, thanks.
Yeah, no worries. Where are you calling in from, Dan?
I am in Tarifa in southern Spain, which is the southernmost tip of mainland Spain, right next to Morocco. It's only about 12, 13 kilometers from Morocco.
Right. I was in Seville not too long ago, like a couple of months ago, and it got hot. Did it get hot for you too?
No, it's never too bad here because we're on the Atlantic. And so there can be, even though it takes 2 hours to drive to Sevilla, it can be like 10, 15 degrees cooler. It's crazy.
Okay. Well, that's really good. So you're in a prime location there.
Yeah, it's great.
For the folks who don't know you, Dan, do you want to give us a bit of an intro? Just let the folks know what you're doing and who are you?
Sure. Yeah, I currently am the director of product design at Kit. Kit used to be called ConvertKit, and it makes tools for content creators, well, anybody with an audience really, to be able to email and segment and really engage that audience through email, and also to create landing pages to capture email addresses. And I've been at Kit just over a year now. Before that, I was at PandaDoc, and before that, various startups. I've been working as a designer professionally since 2007, and all from Tarifa, so all from this small town in the south of Spain. And yeah, I think the last just over 10 to 12 years has been in design leadership. And before that, as a individual, like as a product designer, and also as a front-end developer as well.
Oh, wow. That's very cool. Would you call yourself a design engineer?
I think if I had stuck with what I was doing before as an IC, then I think yes, because I always, my handoff was always the code to the developers. And I always ended up creating and managing the design system, because I was kind of like that bridge between design and engineering. So yeah, I think if I had stuck with the IC path, I think design engineer would be where I'd like to work.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let me set up this conversation. But before that, I just want to remind the audience, someone said hello from the UAE, LinkedIn user. Hello. And I'm guessing this is Jesus from El Salvador. I love your work. I'm guessing this person's talking to you, Dan. So you have someone blowing up the chat. That's great. Yeah, I just want to remind folks that this conversation is recorded, because everybody always asks during these live streams. And you could just head to YouTube and just search Chris from UX Playbook. Okay, so the setup. So I used to think that years of experience within an organization and within your career means you automatically get influence. And I think I was wrong. Right now, I think it's more about confidence, positioning, and impact. And that's why I wanted to get you on here, Dan, because you write a lot about career growth, even have a newsletter called Design Career Guide, and a course called Strategy and Influence for Product Designers. So you are the perfect person to speak to influence as a designer, our topic today. So today I want to cover presenting your design work with conviction, leading discovery and shaping product, and getting noticed and promoted. This is not really about being the loudest voice in the room. It's about being the most trusted one. So let's dive straight in. And I just want to define some terms so we're on the same page. When we say influence, what does that mean to you, Dan? Influence as a designer, what does that mean?
I think there's a couple of things, or a couple of ways to think about it. One is influencing the roadmap or influencing the direction that the product is taking. And the other one could be having some influence over people's opinions or decisions, or how people think about the work you're doing, or maybe the value of product design as a whole. The things that you need to have influence over changes depending on your role. So, for me, it might be really important that I have influence over people's perspective of the product design function as a whole. As an individual contributor, then maybe it's not your job to, make sure that product design as a whole is respected, but it might be important for you to help influence people's opinion on what your role is. And so something that I help a lot of people with in my course is to try and reposition the way people think of them as somebody that gets requirements, turns them into a blueprint for a developer, and then hands it over to the developer, and instead kind of reposition how people think of product designers as, people that go out, investigate, bring back insights, and really shape the direction of the roadmap. And so I think it's both those areas of influence. It's influencing the direction that the product is heading, and influencing product decisions, but also having influence over people's perspective of like what your role is and what value you bring to the table.
Sure. Why is this important if you're, let's just say, more a junior or mid-level, where it's kind of early career stuff? Like, why is influence important versus maybe some of the hard skills that they could kind of put their hours to?
So I do think that there is a kind of shift that happens, and these things become more important over time. So I know that I've had pushback from people saying it's always important, you should always focus on this. I do think that at the beginning, those hard skills, those technical skills are more important to focus on than they might be, let's say, 5 years into your career, because there is a stage in your career where I think you are quite directed, where it is quite normal that people are giving you projects that have quite explicit directions, and this is what we want to achieve, and this is why, and this is how we think we'll get there. And you're not being given the same amount of leeway as you would as a kind of more senior person that's been through a few cycles and is trusted to kind of just, take the ball and run with it. So if you are in that situation where you are a junior and you are being more directed and things are a little bit more kind of like laid out in detail, the only thing really you have to fall back on is, can you create something, usable, functional, efficiently, like quickly do that, get something ready for usability testing, follow heuristics, things like that. So I will say at the beginning, it is really important to have those technical skills to lean on, but there comes a point where your return on investment of just trying to keep making those things better and better is really, really minimal. So when you've got to the point where you have solid design skills and you are capable of creating something really efficiently, that, creating a prototype of something complex that is visually appealing, that's usable, there comes a point where, sure, you can improve your Figma skills and you probably should keep doing that. But if you're spending most of your kind of learning budget, and I mean budget in like time and money, in that area, and you keep doing it, at some point what you get back in terms of career growth is just going to keep declining. And at that point you need to think, okay, the skills that got me this job are maybe not going to get me to senior role, or definitely not to like senior or management, staff or management, or whatever it is, whatever the next progression looks like for you.
Yeah. And is there a right time then, based on what you said, to start building influence? Is it that when there's a diminishing returns on working on existing skills versus gaining more organizational influence? Like, is there that point? Is there a magic number? Like, what, or feeling that someone kind of is in between, like thinking about, should I work on this? Should I not?
I think you need to at least get some cycles in, have worked on something that you've been a part of, a team that has taken an idea, turned it into a prototype, tested it, put it in front of users, worked with an engineer to get it turned into code, seen it go into production, maybe, iterated on something. You at least need to get a few of those cycles under your belt, right? Before you start to think, okay, now I want to, become like a strategic designer and I want to influence leadership and stuff like that. And it's like, but you haven't done any of that yet, so that you do need to, just get a few like real world cycles under your belt. And then some people just shouldn't think about it at all, in my opinion. So I've worked with design interns, that haven't really done any real like paid design work yet, not product design. And for me, the tasks that they were given were really the ones that were very, very like clear requirements. And in some cases, they didn't really know how to use Figma very well. They couldn't work with our design system. And so then it was like, well, if you're not like, I'm not going to give you the really ambiguous projects where you've got to go and like talk to a bunch of stakeholders, figure out like, okay, what does this really mean? What does success look like? Talk to some customers, like do all of this like discovery work, research, like build alignment, figure out, okay, what's the right path forwards? What are the risks here? We're not giving an intern those kind of projects. So if they can't like work with our design system and with very specific requirements, create like a decent prototype, then at that point you're like, okay, well, I don't really know what you can do here, so there is a point where like technical skills come first and then kind of grow into the more kind of strategic role.
Yeah, absolutely. And we had a fellow creator, Tom Scott. Hello, love to see you both chatting. Lots of great advice here.
Oh, amazing. Hey, Tom.
Yeah, good to see you, man. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. Some other folks said
Hi, Julie.
where they're
Hey, Julie.
coming in from. Someone from. Oh, did you said hey to Julie? You know where Julie's from? Is she one of your students?
Yeah, well, no, me and Julie worked together, I think
Oh,
in like 2014, so 11 years ago. So that's
oh, that's
amazing.
awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Awesome stuff. Okay. All right. Let's say that we are clear. Like, let's just say we have, as a designer, we've been through the reps and we're saying, okay, uh, we can relatively well navigate the design job that we're given, but we are maybe wanting to get promoted to a senior role, and to sort of gain more influence within the organization. So I think the maybe the logical next step could be presenting design work with conviction. How does one approach presenting design work when you're kind of trying to step up and sort of lead that conversation?
Yeah. So step one for me, and it's step one in the course as well, is to really understand how the business you work for, how it provides value and how it receives value. So the way I like to think about it is that it's an exchange of value, and to try and map that out. So most of my work is in SaaS, and it's typically you provide some sort of software service, they provide you with a subscription. Not all businesses are like that. If maybe you're a design system designer, the value you provide maybe is consistent brand throughout the product. Maybe it's efficiency. Whatever it is, you need to really be able to understand and talk about that exchange of value that's going on. Sometimes the exchange of value is not monetary as well, because you have free users, and maybe those free users are still really important. So one of the examples I take is Spotify. They have all of these free users. What are they getting from free users? They're getting marketing. They're getting people listening to ads. They're getting data for their algorithms. The algorithms give them these viral moments like Wrapped at the end of the year. That provides more marketing that gets them more of those customers. Some of those customers turn into paid customers, et cetera, et cetera. So if you can map all of that out, like that needs to be the first step, is to make sure you really actually understand how the business is making money, what those value exchanges look like. What about with partners? Are there partnerships and integrations? What do you gain from that? What is the pricing model that you're working with? You need to be able to use that kind of language to now present your designs in a way that's going to connect with leadership, with people outside of design, because it's very different when what you're trying to do is just do like design critique sessions and influence other designers to give you feedback and make your designs better from a technical sense. But if what you want to do is move up in your career, then you need to present design as a way for the company to generate more value. And if you don't understand how the company exchanges value, then you can't do that. So the step one for me is really that understanding of how your company exchanges value with its users. And then you talked about like presenting your designs. And one of the modules I have in my course, we talk about storytelling, and we talk about how completely over complicated and kind of overblown it is in design circles. And so I have this slide deck that's got loads of screenshots of like the 14 stages of like Thomas Campbell's storytelling, or the something myth of storytelling, and all of these articles that are focused at designers. And it's all of these taken from theater and taken from Shakespeare, and it's so like, if you're trying to learn to be a senior product designer and grow your career, and then you have to become like this expert in like Shakespearean storytelling, it's just so over the top. So I get everybody to follow this very simple framework, which is context, problem, solution, and impact. And really just like those 4 stages in your presentations. Doesn't always have to be in that order, because when if you're presenting internally, or like you're doing a 45-minute presentation for a new role, then you can kind of just follow that order. If it's on your website and it's like your case study, then I would just put some impact at the top and then go back to context, problem, solution, impact. So there's impact at the top and bottom, because otherwise people, put something interesting at the top. I mean, this from writing on LinkedIn. You have to have a hook at the top and then something to end with, and it's the same for busy hiring managers who are just like scrolling through hundreds of portfolios. But if you're in this setting where you're like internally presenting or in an interview presentation, then you have a captured audience and you can follow that context, problem, solution, impact framework.
Yeah. Have you found in your career that, I mean, this might be a dumb question, but is there one slide or a topic that always gets buy-in from non-designers? What's one slide that you'd always include in every time you present? Is there that one slide for you?
I think there's one area of that framework which product designers are typically not very good at, or could work on to really make their presentations more impactful, and that's the problem part. And because the problem should be multifaceted, so it's not just user was confused because button had low contrast. Like, that's one part of the problem, but it's got to be, okay, well, what do the users feel when they encounter this problem? So what's the emotional impact? What can that lead to? Does that lead to bad reviews? Does it lead to churn? Why is this problem important for the business? What happens if 1,000 people a day encounter this problem in aggregate? Like, what's the product metric that this impacts? And if that product metric is left unchecked, like what's the business goal that we will then see impacted? So if you can talk about a problem at lots of different levels, because you need to still be like a technical person, you need to be able to talk about, in that case, like contrast levels and why that's a big deal. But you also need to be able to zoom out and say, okay, well, in aggregate, 1,000 people a day facing this problem, this is the effect that it has. So I find that is super important. Obviously the context of the setup, so people know what you're talking about, but then you're into the problem and you've got to make people care about the problem. So can you show the problem? Can you show like an angry customer quote on your screen? Can you then show some product metrics so people can see it, like quantify it? Can you talk about the business in a kind of like a dollars and real world impact? So if you can talk about problems in all of those different ways, then people of all different walks will care about the problem and be like, okay, yeah, now they want to know what the solution is, because they're thinking, wow, that really is annoying. Like I hope this person has found out a good way to fix it.
Yeah. I think one potentially simple question that folks can ask themselves is, so what, when they try to write down the problem? So what? Like, what happens if this doesn't get solved? So what? And
Yep.
the more like sort of layers they delve into it, the more kind of, you're peeling back the layers of the onion and you're saying, okay, well, what does this affect? And the trickle down effects is usually something that's bigger, that stakeholders care about, right? If it's around,
Yep.
dollars lost or dollars saved, then that's something that fundamentally they care about. So
Yep.
I think
like the kind of five whys
yeah,
framework,
yep,
or you could think to yourself, why does the user care? Why would my PM care? And why would my CEO care?
yeah. No, that's a great framing. Yeah, exactly. That's brilliant framing. Want to shift gears here a bit to leading discovery and shaping product. This is part of course, our wider conversation of influence. Why is this important as a designer? If you want to gain influence, should you be leading discovery and should you be shaping the product? How do you think about that, Dan?
Yeah, I think you should. I think there's a kind of discovery you should be leading. The way I encourage, or what I advocate for, is that product designers lead the discovery of a specific like user problem. then PMs typically lead the discovery for like that strategic area of the product, which for me ties in with the way I envision PMs and product designers working together, where PMs can be more focused on the roadmap and like what's the next big problem we should focus on and why. And then when it comes to that problem that we've decided to look into, that product designers can really own that and do the discovery into, okay, well, what is this problem? Can I write a good problem statement about it? Can I quantify it? Can I explain this problem from the customer's perspective based on like real transcripts or support tickets? When I say that product design should lead discovery, it's not that PMs shouldn't lead discovery as well, but each one should be leading discovery at a different type of specificity in a different area of the business. And for me, the reason why I'm always banging on about this, a lot of my LinkedIn posts are about how to do discovery, why you should be doing discovery, and there's a module of my course which is just about discovery. And it is because if you are doing discovery work, you are delivering insights and you are becoming a knowledge worker. Whereas if you are not doing the discovery and somebody's doing discovery, somebody's made some decisions about, okay, this problem is important because this is where users get stuck and this is the opportunity, et cetera, they'll give you a set of requirements. You'll turn the requirements into a prototype hopefully for user testing and then to hand off to the engineer. So then what happens is your role is very narrow. It's like you have requirements, you have the handoff, and you're just doing this little bit here. And over time, what people are going to expect from you is just make it fast, like do the same thing, but do it faster next time, or, make it prettier and do it faster. And I think we can all guess like where that's going to be heading soon, with the better your design system is and the more capable that prototyping software becomes, I think that it's going to be really difficult to just rely on, make this prototype faster and faster as your like main skill that you can fall back on. So I still think it's really important that designers have that craft, that they are able to do that you can make something that's visually appealing and usable. But I think that you need to be like broadening the role and also delivering the insights, understanding so much about that specific problem area that you can also think a little bit about a vision for how you think this should look in 2 years' time. And also then like come back to earth and like do the specific thing that's needed for this quarter and really help everybody in the organization understand like what this problem is about, which kind of users having it, how we can avoid it, what impact, what knock-on effect it has, all of that kind of stuff, because then people will turn to you for not just designs, but for insights, for knowledge, and you become a knowledge worker instead of just a delivery person.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Not being so much so just the person that's responsible for producing, right? In the weeds of just the production. A lot of what you spoke about, which is like requirements get handed down, you produce the work, you hand it off to a different team. Like the reality is that there's a lot of organizations that function like that, and designers play that very narrow role. What's kind of like some baby steps that like, hey, I'm a designer in this role, and like I want to get more insights. I want to lead at least more discovery components, maybe not everything. How could I navigate that? Like, do I need to negotiate with my PM, or should I just do it without asking for permission and just ask for forgiveness?
So definitely just lean towards doing the work and asking for forgiveness later. But you also need to understand what you're trying to do. So you can't just like at the end of this call just be like, right, I'm doing discovery tomorrow, and then say to your PM, don't worry about it, I'm taking over, I'm doing discovery, and then think, oh crap, what does that actually mean? What am I doing? Like, what questions should I ask? So I think having an understanding of the sort of questions you need to ask, and it's not very complicated, but having a set of questions that you ask at the beginning of the next project, or even if you're halfway through a project, ask, why is this important? Like, what happens if we don't fix this? What's the, what we just talked about? Like, what's the problem for the user? What's the problem for what's the product metric that is going to be impacted? What's the business goal that this feeds into? How do we know it's a real problem? Like, how can we quantify this thing? How would we know that this is successful? There's a few different ways as well that, like, what does success look like? That you can do this, which could also be, there's two things that I teach in my course that is included in the discovery framework. One is a discovery hypothesis, which is, what are some sort of experiments that we could run to get confidence that we're moving in the right direction and that this is something important for us to solve. Then you have like a delivery hypothesis of like, okay, when we've actually designed the real thing and put it out into production, what are some signals that we are solving the problem we set out to solve? So having an understanding of like how to break things down in that way. And yeah, there's like a whole set of questions that I think you need to be able to ask. So I think some training, a little bit of studying on like what discovery means, so that you have that kind of structured set of questions. Because for me, what's really important is that it covers the, like I talked about, the quant and qual. So how do the users feel about this? Get the problem in their own words, but also quantifying it, how you know it's a real problem. So that you can also be somebody who helps identify whether you are really just wasting time on a problem that very few people have, and it's potentially difficult and high risk to solve, versus a problem where it's happening to loads of people, it's strategically important, and then if you can also find some sort of low effort ways to find some success, or at least get some signals that you're moving in the right direction, then that's like the perfect type of problem to be working on. So ways that you can sort of understand as well to how to distinguish between those kinds of problems is super important. So yeah, so basically knowing what you're actually trying to do, having a set of questions that you can rely on, and have a repeatable process, and chat to your PM about it, because a lot of the time PMs are doing this, but we always hear from PMs like, I don't want to be stuck in the weeds and be like a project manager. I want to be, looking ahead, working on getting the roadmap into shape, all that kind of stuff. And so oftentimes they're doing discovery. They just assume the designers are too busy to do it. Designers assume that the PMs don't want designers doing it, and they don't talk to each other. They're not honest about really what their career aspirations are and where they want to be spending their time. And so a lot of times, like, the resentment builds up, and one person's like, oh, I wish the designer could do more of this. The designer's like, I wish the PM would let me do more of that. But they haven't actually chatted about it. And I know this for sure because I used to manage PMs and product designers, and there was just like no communication about any of this stuff. And also, strangely, like, no roles and responsibilities docs very often that establish what the difference is between the roles, which is strange because these roles are like so overlapping, and there's always this kind of like no clear boundaries. So that's something that's really important, to work with management and have these like clear distinctions in what the roles involve, what your responsibilities are.
Yeah, absolutely. And on our last point of getting noticed and promoted. So again, on the topic of influence, how does influence help you get noticed and promoted? Like, what's the payoff of, like, okay, if I'm willing to invest in building influence in my org, how does this manifest in terms of getting noticed and getting promoted? How do you think about that?
So I think it like we talked about at the beginning, so influence over the direction the product is heading, and influence over people's perception of the role of product design are the two main ones. And If you want to move into senior, but certainly staff or like leadership or management roles, then having influence over the direction that the product is heading, I think is really critical. Having something you can point to where you've really shaped why the product is the way it is, and that you helped drive that particular outcome, or you helped influence, this feature being the way it is, because you understood that doing it in that specific way was the best way to do it for the users and the business. Because when you get that, the mix of the two, that's usually the recipe for long-term success in product design. You can do something that's great for the business, but ultimately not that great for the user, and it will lead to short-term success. And there are obviously cases where this is all a bit blurry. So if you think about social media, it's bad for the user, it's good for the advertiser, and do we consider the advertiser the user of social media? I mean, they don't use it, but they benefit from it, and the users mainly at a disadvantage. Same with like lottery, gambling, online products. So I know that's like, maybe people listen to that and like, well, that's a little bit, idealistic. But let's say you do work in a SaaS business or something like that, where, we're hoping to deliver value for the user and value for the business. If you can point to areas of the product, of the features you've shipped, that this is the way it is because it solves this customer problem, it moved this product metric, and it feeds into one of our business goals. That's key really to moving up the ladder, because what you're aiming to do is become a strategic partner of the business, where you are helping the business be more successful. Your design is the vehicle, but ultimately the goal is to help the business be more successful, and you're doing it through design.
Right. One thing we didn't talk about with influence is the people component of like people within your org, because you've worked with these folks, or let's just have a clean slate. You're brand new, right? You've just started in the org, and let's just say you're like the head of design. So immediately there is some status within the org where you're like, oh, you're leading a design team, but there still needs to be that effort to like have some influence over a product that maybe you've just started working on. Maybe you know the industry, but you don't know the ins and out. You don't know the people. How do you think about navigating the people component of like a new job where influence is required?
Yeah, I don't think I've got like a particular defined strategy from that, as opposed to just reaching out and chatting to people and really understanding how design, best serves those different departments, or what kind of partnerships you need with different departments. But so, for example, one of the partnerships that I find is really critical is with the customer-facing teams. So whether that's like we have customer success managers, or whether it's the support team, or whether it's like project specialists or things like that. Those are people that I find, the better that you can get on with those people as a designer or a design leader, the more relationships you can build there, the better off your discovery work will be, because they're really these sort of like aggregators of customer knowledge. And if they, obviously you can go to them and try to get a steer from them of like what kind of customers I should talk to, or what are you hearing, or how can I go into Intercom and like create a filter to understand this, or whatever it happens to be. But if they also know what your goals are and what knowledge you need for your future projects, they'll have like they'll be on the lookout for it, and then they'll be start to just feeding you knowledge proactively. And so I like to think that definitely in the kind of business that I'm working in, a SaaS business, as in a software business, everybody is basically building the product in some way, shape, or form, or everybody is a product person, or in some shape or form. And so having frontline people kind of helping you do your research is amazing. And then that's kind of like the more, I guess, the one that people don't talk about so much. Obviously, product and engineering is the one that we always focus on. But I like to add in like any of those customer facing roles as like equally as important in terms of partnership as product and engineering.
Yeah, sure. Okay, let's have a quick time check. Okay, let's whiz on to the questions. We've got a few questions in the comments. Philip says, how do you tie in persuasion with influence? Which one do we need first to be successful in the other one? And how to practice them on a daily basis with stakeholders? Any thoughts here, Dan?
Yeah, I think they're really just like hand in hand. But maybe persuasion is a little bit more like I'm trying to convince you to believe something that maybe you don't already believe. And influence can be just like, it's nothing controversial, it's nothing that you disagree with, but I'm just going to keep saying the same message, because eventually if you talk about it enough, it will, things will start to change. Sometimes a lot of these things, it's like you imagine like trying to steer a big tanker, where they say that you have to start steering it like 10 miles in advance or something. If you want to make big changes in an organization, let's say nobody focuses on design system at your company, like you don't have a design system, you're going to have to talk about that every week for a year before things actually happen. And so during the course of that year, you're going to improve the way you talk about it. You're going to become, I guess, more persuasive. You're going to find different ways to talk about the advantages of a design system that fit in with whatever's happening at this exact moment. Some bug happens where something is low contrast, and you can be like, oh, well, if we had a design system, this is one of the things that we could have avoided, or whatever it is, like something topical that you manage to match with that thing that you care about. So yeah, I think that persuasion and influence is pretty much hand in hand. If you are persuasive, you'll have more influence.
Okay. I have someone from YouTube. You said earlier, in aggregate, 1,000 people are facing this problem. Can we estimate this number if we don't actually know the accurate number via 8 interviews and the number is better, or percentage? Like, how do we do it with no concrete data from our side?
Yeah. So something I always say is I would always much rather work with somebody that sort of understands the sort of chain reaction that occurs. So like if one person clicks this, that person, can't find the CTA, that one person feels frustrated. If 1,000 people can't click it, then the thing that will be affected would be, let's say, this funnel. And if this funnel were to, go to zero, or, go to like 50% of its current rate, this is the business goal that would be negatively affected. Like, I'd much rather work with somebody that if they had the data, they'd know what to do with it because they understood where all of these things fit together, than somebody that has the data but doesn't know what to do with it. So it's not always a case of having the exact data and only telling a story when you have exact data. It's also really understanding the connection between user problem, product metric, business goal, and how things tie together. And for instance, with the business goal, you pretty much never have a direct connection between this problem that a user is facing and like how fixing it impacted churn. You can't say like, oh, we made this change to this screen and now, our churn rate, which went from, 28 to 30% or 28 to 25, whatever, is because of this. You're never going to be able to connect those things, but to know where everything fits together is the important bit. So there's not like an exact answer to this question, because it also depends, like, is 1,000 people a lot or a tiny amount for your software? Personally, like, I work in a very data-oriented way I have done for a long time. We are running a lot of A/B tests. We have a lot of funnels set up. I know exactly, how many people are clicking this thing that we've just put into production, and lots of the features that we put out are A/B tested first. Not everybody is in that situation, and if you don't have the data, let's say if I'm interviewing somebody, I will always ask them, okay, you didn't have the data, but what data would you have liked to have? Or like, if you had access to the data, what would you have done with it? What would you have been tracking? What kind of A/B test would you have wanted to set up? Things like that. So also, again, like, to have influence and persuasion, to be able to like advocate for these things and get the tools you need to have an idea to begin with of how you would use them and what difference that would make. So yeah, that wasn't really an answer to the question, because I think the answer to the question is there is no like blanket statement for this. It really depends. Every single problem is different. Every situation is a bit different.
Sure. Sam's very eager. He says, can you answer my question after this on YouTube? So let's go for it. Solo freelancer here. How do you suggest building influence on LinkedIn to get clients when you don't have social proof? I reduce churn in B2B health mobile apps. I guess that was his one-liner. Do you have anything for this, Dan? How do you suggest building influence on LinkedIn to get clients when you don't have social proof?
Well, I mean, social proof is, I don't know if he means social proof as in no followers yet, or social proof as in no customers that like his, have got anything to say about his designs. So would be good to know. But I mean, if it's social proof as in no followers, then it's hard work, but you just gotta put in the work, as we both know. And building influence on LinkedIn is a weird thing, because you have to learn how to write for LinkedIn, which is this weird thing that we do of which I've heard called broetry, which I think is great.
That is great. That is great.
You have to write something in the first 2 to 3 lines that gets people to stop and actually read the rest of it. And so first of all, write about something that you actually know what you're talking about. So figure out what you're an expert on, and don't worry that you think like nobody else cares. There will always be that like niche of people out there that care. Don't worry that you've read this kind of stuff before and you think that everybody that cares already knows this. Even if they do, sometimes you will read something just written by somebody else that just resonates, even though it's like you already knew it, but like you needed to hear it written in that way, or with that graphic or whatever it is. But I think as well, it's just like putting in the reps, right? Because you just get better and better at it. I've been very bad at LinkedIn recently, but I have an excuse. I've been teaching a course. I've been busy with my day job, but I used to just post like 4 times a week, every single week, and as you do that, it just gets quicker and quicker to do it, and people want to see you just showing up regularly, and eventually they'll be like, oh, okay, this person is really like every week they're adding some value. I need to follow them and not miss out. So just, put in the reps.
Sam actually answered us, and he said, no social proof, no clients. So solo freelancer, no clients. How does he build influence to get more clients if he doesn't have the proof?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't done any freelancing for, I don't know, like 12, 13, 14 years. So hard for me to say. It's probably a different world for freelancers now.
Yeah. But I think it might go back to what you were saying before, Dan, which is like, if this is what you want to do and this is what you think you can kind of talk about, like reducing churn, for example, in a specific thing that you've worked on. Maybe you haven't got clients, but you did that in your day job and now you're no longer working there and you're sort of going out on your own. You could write about that, right? For someone who cares about reducing churn, might want to learn about how they could do it, or how can someone help them do it. So I think
maybe create a resource that you
yeah,
can give away. Because you can, if you had a PDF, 10-page PDF on how to reduce churn in B2C health mobile apps, and all of the research that you did to put that together would turn into hundreds of posts or dozens of posts that could all link to some sort of page where you could also collect people's email addresses in return for them downloading that free guide. So something like that might be good.
yeah, exactly. And the other thing I was going to say, which is I'm not allowed to say this apparently from industry peers, but just do free work. If you don't have social
Yeah.
proof and you have no evidence that you can actually do this type of work, you should just offer yourself to get the experience if you can, if if you do have time, because that's fundamentally what you want to be doing. So you're exchanging design work for a testimonial, given that the work is actually good. And then as the ball rolls, you keep on doing that to the point where I'm sure you will be able to charge people because you've done this a bunch of times and you've got some good testimonials. Another question I have for you, Dan. How do you portfolio analysis in a given portfolio? How do you analyze a portfolio? Let me start again. How do you analyze a portfolio? Can you give examples of what's important and what makes you lose interest? I'm guessing as a hiring manager.
Right. Well, let's piss off some more of our peers then, and people hate it when I say this, and I got called out on this. I always get called out on this, but the visual design of your portfolio is so important. In my case, because the roles that I hire for, UI design, visual design, whatever you want to call it, is one of the criteria for being able to do the role. And so the first filter is, for me, is does this person have any sense of visual design? And I will reject somebody straight away on that. And this is where people get so annoyed when they hear this, because I was on Rid's podcast and this topic came up as well. And people were furious about it. But the thing is, it's not that it's the most important thing for the role. It's just that it's a non-negotiable. And it's the thing that I can detect straight away. And so the skill matrix that I have for the designers on my team, it's one of 8 things. And it's not the most important of those 8 things, but it is, a non-negotiable thing. It's a requirement. So having a portfolio that demonstrates consistent spacing, visual hierarchy, use of white space, good typography, things like that. If you can get that right on your portfolio, then I assume that you can get it right in your app design. If you can't get it right in your portfolio, I assume you can't get it right in complex app design as well, because these fundamentals are changed slightly in app design. So spacing will be tighter, but the idea of having consistent spacing where you have spacing inside a component that is smaller than the spacing between components, or you create visual hierarchy through typography and you use white space to draw attention, all of these things, you need to understand this whether you're designing for a mobile app, a web app, or a portfolio. And for me, this is part of a product designer's job, is to understand these concepts and be able to apply them in any scenario. So whether I ask you to design a poster or a portfolio or a web app, you should be able to apply these principles. So that's number one, because I'm not going to read any of the case studies if I can see that you wouldn't be able to meet the bar for UI design in that role. And then after that, I'm looking for obviously relevant experience. And I'm also looking for some impact. So if we go back to context, problem, solution, impact, a little bit of demonstration of going through some of those cycles of having gathered context, done some discovery work, done designs that are based on insights and research, had those designs go into production, iterated on what happened in production, improved it, and carried on and continued to measure the success of it. So that's really what I'm looking for in the case study, is some demonstration that you've done that. I don't really care how you structure a case study, how, whether you include the screenshot of a whiteboard that seems to be mandatory, or like the 5 different personas or whatever it is, like whether you include that or not doesn't really matter to me. It's just, especially at the senior role, I'm looking for people that have like been through those cycles and they can demonstrate that in the portfolio.
Yeah. Follow-up question here. How important is industry knowledge? For example, if you're like, if it was, again, an email product, would you consider folks have worked sort of in that space over other folks? If you're looking at seniors, for example, like industry sort of knowledge of how that functions, maybe, potentially from another, like a MailChimp or like whatever, right? They've had some knowledge in that space. So they've seen patterns over and over again that potentially you guys can, like, they will just onboard quicker, and they've just seen that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'd say slight advantage, but not a huge one. I think what would be more important is, let's say somebody has only worked in like B2C mobile apps, and now they want to work in B2B web application, or vice versa. Then it would be like, okay, there's a lot of relearning to do of like standard patterns, psychology, like typical workflows, like that I think, I mean, it's not like you couldn't do it, but somebody who's like senior B2B web app maybe is not senior B2C mobile app. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's maybe that's not true, but I would say that would be more of an issue than staying within B2B web app, but completely different industry.
Sure. Okay, another question here. I think we've got time for a couple more. What do you suggest designers having less experience and don't have confidence in the concept they design, and those who just want to start? Meaning, like they like designing, they just don't have that much confidence in the designs, but they still obviously want to give it a go. What should these folks be doing?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. The way I started out was with very small businesses that wanted to kind of make their move into becoming coming online. And I was just chatting to somebody actually who was setting up digital presence for people using Kit, and they are working with people that were like HVAC technicians. So, but this could be, people like that, plumbers, electricians. I think that's interesting. People that don't have a digital presence and they want to have their first digital presence. If you're a beginner designer, you can probably set them up with something basic that is still useful. What's difficult as a beginner designer is getting that first job with the kind of company that everybody wants to work with, and diving straight into like a really complex product. And I think you can kind of have more impact in a very simple situation rather than having, very little impact in a very complex, big, organization. It's probably what I would aim for to get a few cycles in. I mean, that's obviously like a freelance path. For like a career path, I think the bigger companies are better set up to take on junior designers. It's just that I think there's also a possibility that you, as a junior designer in a big company, it's hard to actually have any autonomy. So you you end up in those very, very like directed, very specific roles. And so breaking out of that, and it can be good to get your first kind of like entry into the industry, but I would then quickly try to change from, from that role to something else, to go to a different company where you can get given more responsibility. So yeah, if you are able to get that foothold in a big company as a junior or as an intern, I would do a couple of years, and then I would try to go somewhere else where you can, get a mid-level role.
Sure. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, with that, just want to show one more comment on the screen before we wrap this up. Solid value, guys. Loving the content. Thank you so much, LinkedIn user. Don't know why I can't see your name, but there we go. Okay, so before we go, I would love to give you some time, Dan, to tell us about the course that we've been talking about this on this call. So I will hide backstage, take as much time as you want, and I'll see you in a bit. So let me just bring it up right here, and yeah, take it away.
Cool. Well, this course, first of all, I'll say it's not for everybody, because it's really aimed at people that are already working as product designers, and at least sort of like mid-level product designers looking to move into senior roles, or senior designers looking to move into beyond senior staff roles. And I've also had designers join who are design managers, and they find the course interesting to look for techniques to help their designers become more influential, to be more strategic and have a more impactful role at the company they work at. So that's really the level of designer that it's aimed at. People who get the most success out of it tend to be, as I said, working for a company that typically not working agencies, not working as freelancers, but people working embedded in a company as a product designer get the most value from it. And in that course, it's full of very practical examples. So there are real presentations I've done, internal presentations, and also presentations I've done to get new roles, which I share like the full templates in the course, and talk through why those templates are structured the way they are. There's a discovery template that I walk people through in the course as well. So it's very guided on how to use that discovery template so that you can be somebody that delivers insights. There are templates for running workshops or very specific problem solving meetings to either like define the most important user problems or things like that. So it's like full of these very specific examples and templates to become a more strategic designer, because this whole theme of like becoming a strategic designer it can be very kind of wishy-washy and ambiguous. And so what I wanted to do with the course is really have very concrete steps to follow to achieve that. So there's exercises to do in order to understand your business better, understand how it exchanges value, exercises for that, exercises for doing stakeholder alignment, which is basically like interviewing stakeholders and understanding what they care about, what success looks like for them. So it's 5 different modules. It's understanding the business that you work in, being able to communicate the value of your work. So connecting your work to something called leading and lagging indicators, leading discovery, how to present your work for maximum impact, and then creating a sort of strategic framework for you to become a designer who can work at 2 different levels, work at the level where you're using all of those insights to create a design vision, but then also breaking that vision down to very specific feature work for engineers. Whereas a lot of designers get stuck just in that doing the feature work, and I want designers to be able to work at those 2 different levels where you're thinking about designing for that future state and also, the immediate design work. So yeah, that's I do a cohort-based version of the course, but I don't have dates for that yet. But there, if you go to that website, you'll see two versions. There's a self-paced version, which is cheaper, and you can go through it at your own pace. And then there'll be a cohort one. And the difference there is that I do some live sessions. We do some live Q&A. We do some kind of like workshop sessions together to run through some exercises. They'll be more expensive, but there'll be take-home assignments that I will provide feedback on and things like that. And I'm guessing next one will be sometime in spring, early summer next year for that. And if you want something cheaper or you don't want to wait, then there's also the self-paced version as well. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Dan, for joining us today. So guys, if you want to check out Dan's course, the self-pace, or join the waitlist for the cohort, again, scan that QR code. I saw a lot of folks scanning. So thank you very much. Again, Dan, really enjoyed the time. Thank you for, talking about this subject. Yeah, it was really good. I think, I need to wrap up, but I'm going to take you off stage. Feel free to drop off if you've got a busy day. I know you're kind of ending your work day here on this live. So yeah, again, really appreciate you coming on, and thank you very much.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you, Chris. It's been really fun, and yeah, glad you invited me on. Thanks for the opportunity. Man. Cool. All right.
Take it easy.
Bye.
Okay, we're getting comments coming in saying thanks, and that was helpful. Again, yes, let me find that QR code again. Yeah, again, you can scan this QR code or visit, let me make sure I have the URL correct. Designcareer.guide is if you missed that QR code scanning. And a couple more things I want to talk about before I let you guys go. And give me a second. Let me find the buttons. Okay, here. The next LinkedIn Live is November the 19th, so the week after next. And I'll be talking to the Principal Design Director of Gen AI at Microsoft AI, Seamus Scott, which he also previously held roles at Lego and Sony. So this is going to be a hell of a treat. The Ask Me Anything is called How AI Changes Design, because we know a shift is happening in our industry, new tools, new workflows, new capabilities. So we'll be touching on how does AI separate design from production, what skills actually matter in this new reality, and how to position yourself on that right side, and so much more. This is not just another AI in design conversation. This is about understanding the fundamental shifts happening under our feet. So if you've been wondering where design is heading in the world of AI, then you can tune in to listen to that by scanning, again, this QR code, or go to live.uxplaybook.org and sign up for the notifications, and I'll just ping you a couple of times a month to tell you about these lives that we run if you find it valuable. And thank you guys for being here. One last thing I need to talk to you guys about is, again, UX Playbooks 50% discount for the whole November. That's right. You can get all of my playbooks for 50% off. It's literally the year's best deal, and you can save up to $150. All you need to do is head to uxplaybook.org and enter code FRYYAY25 and get 50% off. Again, I only do this once a year, so if you want to wait until 2026, be my guest, or you can go grab it. Again, yeah, scan the QR code someone just did there, but uxplaybook.org, and check out all the stuff from portfolio to job search to UX frameworks, design leadership stuff, and built inside Notion, one of my favorite products ever. Anyway, I think that's it, guys. Again, conversations recorded on YouTube. Head there to watch the full thing. If you missed anything and you joined us late, just search Chris from uxplaybook.org. Would appreciate a cheeky sub if you liked what you heard today on YouTube. But until next time and our AI conversation, bye. This is the design of everyday people.
It sound right, boy.
This is the design of everyday people.
It sound right, boy.